national viewpoint. Nationwide, the system consists of 12 farm credit districts. Each district contains a federal land bank, a federal intermediate credit bank, and a bank for cooperatives. And for help with larger loans, there is also a central bank for cooperatives in Denver. These 37 banks are supervised by the Farm Credit Administration. No matter where people live in the United States, from Puerto Rico to Alaska to Hawaii, they are in a district served by 3 farm credit banks. In each district, the Federal Land Bank makes long-term loans to farmers, rural homeowners, and selected farm-related businesses secured by first mortgages on real estate. These loans are made through the more than 500 land bank associations. Each bank for cooperatives makes loans to eligible farmer cooperatives. These may include any marketing, purchasing, or service organization of farmers, ranchers, or fishermen. The Federal Intermediate Credit Banks make loan funds available to some 400 production credit associations. Those PCAs provide short-term loans and loans up to 7 years to help finance agricultural operations, farm-related businesses, and other family and rural home needs. At his local co-op, John Sturdivant wound up chairing the finance committee. The Bank for Cooperatives was already providing them with seasonal capital, but now they were seeking a term loan to build additional grain storage. Their first step was to contact the bank and outline their plans. And John soon learned what it means to a cooperative to have the services of a bank that specializes in its needs.
These are your current audited figures?
That's correct.
Bank representatives help them evaluate the additional storage facilities, the market potential, and the economic feasibility of expanding.
I want to ask you about this bulk service plant. Does it supply the chemicals into the blending in here?
Let's go right around here and we'll show you that.
Okay, all right, yeah, I'd like to see that.
I would like to get a copy.
They counseled with management in budgeting and financial planning, and even suggested a program to train the additional people they would need. The loan was approved, with a repayment plan tailored to the special needs of this business.
Well, now that's over.
All in favor say aye.
John impressed his fellow co-op members, and they later nominated him to serve on the District Farm Credit Board.
Good deal, John.
You know, the young farmers are one.
Bill Williams got there by a different route. Let him tell it.
Back when we were renting, it seemed like my wife and I were moving all the time. And sometimes the only land I could get wasn't very productive.
Look at this one. Take it home, we'll look at it.
At the time Granddad left me some of his land, I didn't know much about land ownership. But I knew to operate efficiently, we'd have to get a hold of more land. Then, too, the house and the buildings on the place were pretty run down. We had some money saved, but nowhere near enough for what I wanted to do.
Hello, Bill, come in.
I didn't even know the people at the Land Bank Association at that time, but I took in my papers and records, and we talked it over.
You can look it over and see if we did it right. Well, this is the end of our farm here, and
We figured if we spent our cash on a few more acres, it wouldn't be enough to make a difference, and we'd still be living in that rundown house. So they went out and appraised the land, and what we finally figured out was this. My wife and I used some of our capital, plus lots of elbow grease, to make that house a livable home. Then, through the Land Bank Association, we used the land Granddad had left me as additional collateral on a long-term loan to get the rest of the land we now have. With that land, I got a pond I badly needed. I built up the soil fertility, improved the yield so I could feed more livestock, and I didn't have to split the additional income with a landlord. By careful land management, I'm making more money off the land than the cost of my operation and the loan payment. And while I'm repaying the land bank loan, we're settled, living better, and building up an equity in good farmland.
That's good, Dad. Yeah, that's enough. Played enough. And you just start chores. Nope. One more. Start chores. 5 o'clock.
And incidentally, I learned quite a bit about land ownership. My fellow members elected me to the board of our Land Bank Association, and later I was elected to the district board.
Fred Harpin already had established credit with his Production Credit Association. They routinely handled his credit needs over the counter. But this time, he presented a newcomer.
Good. Who's your partner?
Yeah, this is my son, Ronnie. Ronnie, Mr. Reynolds.
Hello, Ronnie.
Hello.
And we are going into a kind of a partnership. Ronnie's made a working deal with me on feed, and he's got his eye on a couple of registered heifers.
I've almost saved enough to buy one.
Good.
So he's wondering if maybe he and I together could sign a note to get the rest.
I brought my FFA records. I'll show you how I earned the money I got.
Fine. Good records and good management go hand in hand. Come on in. We'll make an application.
One thing.
Yes?
I don't want to pay too much interest.
Well, don't blame you for that. You've probably been listening to your dad. If we weren't competitive, we wouldn't have his business. Come on in.
Go ahead.
Farmers helping each other keep their area productive. That's how the system works. Each borrower buys stock in his Farm Credit Association in proportion to his loan, becoming a voting member on a one-man, one-vote basis.
Well, I think about 2.
As in other cooperatives, association members elect their own boards of directors. The board sets local policy and hires management. Thus, the farmers, ranchers, and growers who use them own the associations and cooperatives. And they, in turn, own their farm credit banks. Cost savings, dividends, or refunds may pass from the banks back to the borrowers. The banks obtain most of their loan funds through the sale of securities in the nation's investment market by their fiscal agency office in New York. Any private citizen, bank, or institution may invest in American agriculture through securities dealers nationwide. And the banks provide agriculture with a direct channel to the nation's money markets. Today, farmers like John, Bill, and Fred are donning business suits part-time to share control of their farm credit system. In each district, the land bank associations, PCAs, and borrower cooperatives each elect 2 members to the district board of directors, with a 7th appointed at large. The board elects officers to operate the district banks.
My son Ronnie, he's 14 now. He really wants to be a farmer. I don't know how I can make that possible for him if the tax...
One of these farmers may even wind up on the federal Farm Credit Board, as the cooperatives and associations vote for nominees from their farm credit district.
The way everything's going now.
Well, I think all of us farmers have been guilty of the fact that we don't want to turn loose the reins soon enough and start making plans sooner. If we realize we got a boy that wants to farm, back out, let him get in.
In a nation where every 10 farmers and fishermen must produce enough to sustain about 500 of their fellow citizens, where increasing numbers of the younger generation are seeking the advantages of rural life, where costs have risen on everything a farmer uses, more than ever, farmers must work together to supply their changing and increasing needs for capital. And the farm credit system is changing with them, shifting more of the decision-making to the grassroots level, and making credit more adaptive to their needs, providing a permanent and dependable source of capital for agriculture. By the way, back then, Fred Harpin wasn't even a member of his local board. Something must have motivated him.
You know, I was thinking about us farmers. Funny thing happened on our way to the banks of the farm credit system. We ended up owning them.